Fpyq Jiang. Chapter 41. Empress Dowager Lan. He laughed grimly and glanced at Shang Guanyao. Then he made his leave. Once Qi Yunruo had reached Shang Guanyao's side, he sat down. He looked at the other party and couldn't help but think that Shang Guanyao had betrayed Cheng Sijia. However, he had not been courteous toward Tan Qiao yesterday, and at the same time, he did not seem afraid of him. Shang Guanyao took note of his gaze. Then, he leisurely said, "On what occasion would the Qi family of the great state of Kong worry about the king of Xinyuan country?" Fear struck Qi Yunruo's heart. Shang Guanyao continued, "In the past I had been in Yushu Pass and saw your grandfather. You resemble him greatly." Staring blankly at him, Qi Yunruo asked, "I resemble General Qi Ran, a lot." Shang Guanyao nodded. He studied the youth. "When I had first laid eyes on you, I didn't get that impression, but the more I look at you, the more I think you look like him." Qi Yunruo lowered his head. What was on his mind was anyone's guess. A while later, he asked, "Since your honored self knows my identity, then you should understand that I am not a spy of Xinyuan country." Shang Guanyao could already hear loud yells outside. "If you're not, then you're not." After another long pause, He shouted from outside, frightening Qi Yunruo. He asked, "Does your honored self really not worry about King Cheng?" Loud laughter tumbled from Shang Guanyao's lips. "His Highness is within the palace. Why would this old man be worried?" With a crash, the front door split open. Fpyq stared at the two with a cold gaze. Qi Yunruo's heart tightened in apprehension, but then, Shang Guanyao softly sighed. Fpyq raised his arm behind him. "Seize them!" As Shang Guanyao sipped his tea in a calm manner as the guards tied up Qi Yunruo and shoved him outside the door. Fpyq said to Shang Guanyao, "Sir Shang Guan, you harbored a spy with the intention of conspiring against the state. Your honored self must follow me as well." Shang Guanyao set down the teacup. With serene expression he said, "If Tan Qiao has the confidence, then he should come here and personally tie me up. If he doesn't, you all get out." Fpyq couldn't hold back from kicking the small side table down, before spinning on his heel and leaving. Tied up and brought outside, Qi Yunruo realized he had successfully escaped. The guards brought him into the palace, and he once again saw Prime Minister Tan Qiao. "Cold enough to freeze," Tan Qiao said, "council member of the Qiang." Qi Yunruo stayed silent. Tan Qiao sneered. "Since this is the case, then escort this Sir Council member to where His Highness is and allow them to reminisce properly." People came to grab Qi Yunruo from behind. As they did, Qi Yunruo faintly noticed a red figure at the back of the hall. It was a beautiful woman. She reclined on a couch, a hand placed on her lower abdomen. Cheng Sijia had never expected that his first guest would be Qi Yunruo. The two shared a look. A guard of the Qi descent shoved Qi Yunruo, causing him to stumble. Cheng Sijia went to support him out of reflex, but the youth shook off his hand and went to sit at another side. The guard locked the door after stepping foot outside. Cheng Sijia fanned himself. Spreading out his legs, he asked inquisitively, "Why are you here?" Qi Yunruo slowly replied, "Wasn't it because of you?" Cheng Sijia smiled. "I've been stuck here for a few days already. How could I have brought you here? I think you were with He. Has He been captured?" Enraged, Qi Yunruo said, "No. He escaped. They only captured me." "Really?" Qi Yunruo briefly summarized the events of the past few days. Then he no longer spoke. Cheng Sijia closed his folded fan. He lightly tapped it on his palm. He seemed pensive, and after a long time, he giggled. We can be considered to be sharing trials and tribulations. How about this? Once we leave this place, you can stay with me instead of returning to the great state of Kong." "Your Highness should not speak of such things," said Qi Yunruo. You are a prisoner right now, thrust into this outcome by your consort and subject. It's better to think of a way to escape first. Then after we escape, you'll follow me. Cheng Sija leaned toward him. Unable to endure it any longer, Qi Yunruo slapped him. Actually, I like women. I was just joking just now. I've been imprisoned here and had no one to talk to. I'm just lonely. Cheng Sija's expression was now grim and apologetic. Qi Yunruo did not want to talk to him anymore. When night descended, a maidservant of the Qi descent brought their meals. Cheng Sija thanked her gently, and he ate with Qi Yunruo. Qi Yunruo couldn't help but say, "Are you not worried? Who knows when Tan Qiao will execute you? They won't do that for now." "Why not? They need to wait until Fengqiang gives birth. The best case scenario is that it's a boy. Then they can send me off without a worry." Cheng Sija's expression remained calm even when talking about his death, not the slightest hint of fear could be seen. Qi Yunruo recalled what he had seen earlier. He frowned. "She seems to be 3 to 4 months pregnant. You can tell." During Qi Nikan's pregnancy, Qi Yunruo was there to witness it often. Therefore, he knew, but he didn't want to say this to Cheng Sija because in his heart, he was the enemy. Come night time, Qi Yunruo understood what Shang Guanyao had meant before when he said that because the king was in the palace, he wasn't worried. After Cheng Sija shut the doors, he banged at the floor. Not long after, he found a hidden pathway. Qi Yunruo stared at him in astonishment. Cheng Sija indifferently said, "My grandfather spent decades worth of time to build this palace. Each residence has a secret path, but other than me and Sir Shang Guan, no one knows about this. Fengqiang has been imprisoned in this residence for a few years and lived here obediently as such." He entered the secret pathway. Qi Yunruo could only follow him. On the path, he asked, "Are you leaving the palace now?" Cheng Sija, who was in front, said, "If I wanted to leave, I would have left already." The tunnel turned and bent. After who knew how long, Cheng Sija stopped in his tracks. Then he went up a few steps. He pushed the trapdoor above ajar. And they could hear the words above clearly. Tan Qiao was saying, "At present, we don't have anything to worry about. The most important thing is that you give birth to a child. And once the child ascends the throne, you and I will support him." Fengqiang sneered. "Are you dissatisfied with me? His Highness stripped those people of their officialdom because they had committed crimes. On what grounds are you reinstating their positions?" In a shrill voice, Fengqiang said, "What laws did they violate? These laws are those of the Han. For us Qi people, they mean nothing. Don't tell me you want the Qi people to return to power and influence in the court. So what if I do?" Cheng Sija whispered to Qi Yunruo, "Even I cannot suppress a woman like Fengqiang. Much less Tan Qiao." Qi Yunruo nodded. The dispute above continued. In short, Fengqiang desired to promote all the Qi people, no matter if they were good or bad, but Tan Qiao did not agree. Finally, Tan Qiao said with indifference, "One would fear that in the future, the king will be surnamed Feng." Tan Qiao did not comprehend the extent of Fengqiang's ambitions. She knew that if the court only had her as a member of the Qi ethnicity, those Han subjects would not listen to her. Those Han people cried out that the harem could not intervene in court politics, restraining her out of extreme fear. Only when the court was entirely of the Qi ethnicity would her words hold weight. She did not want to become a queen dowager that lived leisurely like a prince. What she wanted was absolute power. Li Chen besieged the domain of the Qiang people. On the 10th day of shrinking the perimeter, he received an urgent imperial decree from the capital that had traveled non-stop. He opened the cover of the bright yellow imperial decree. The moment he saw the familiar black characters, his eyes widened. This wasn't from his imperial father. It was from his imperial grandmother. Imperial grandmother had come out of seclusion. Li Chen unfurled the imperial decree. "Read one character at a time." However, his grandmother did not write much. Once she had heard that Li Chen had gone to fight at the border, she warned him not to covet meritorious deeds and rashly charge into the Qiang's territory, to take care of himself properly. She told him not to worry about those rumors in the capital, for she would take care of them for him. She hoped that her grandson would return safe and sound. Li Chen's heart was pained. He stared at the flags of the Qiang territory far away. "Grandmother, your grandson will return to the capital safe and sound, and will also bring elder sister along." The 8 largest tribes of the Qiang people did things their own way. Only when they were fighting a common enemy, such as the Li clan of the great state of Kong, would they aggregate in a Yuè Hóu's territory with their troops. There were many tribes among the Qiang. Led by Fpyq were those who practiced the golden mean. On the other hand, Fpyq and the Western Owl tribe were part of the pro-war faction. This time, the Western Owl tribe lost their 12 Western Owl yakshas and the fierce general Yuè Hóu. After that, the troops of the great state of Kong chased after them as they fought. Yuè Hóu asked everywhere for more men to join their army. However, he faced rejection from them all. Yuè Hóu had no choice but to rely on Fpyq. He didn't care what methods Fpyq used, as long as it made Prince Chun retreat. Li Chen still did not receive any news about Qi Yunruo. The captured Qiang soldiers also did not say that they had encountered him. He had sent many people to search the Yun River. Yet they never found any traces of him. Every time he recalled the image of Qi Yunruo riding Hungsun into the distance, Li Chen felt that even breathing was painful. That kind, intelligent, sensible little Qi. Until 15 years of age, he did not have anyone who loved him and lived under the loathing gazes of others. Sometimes, Li Chen thought it would have been better if little Qi had never come to his estate. Then he would not have followed him to Yusha Pass, and naturally would not encounter danger. However, it was little Qi who saved him. First, he left Yusha Pass alone to a place he did not know. No matter the person, when they were alone, they would probably get lost. But little Qi made it to him. He came and stopped them from going forward at the front of the Yun River, telling them of Sida's betrayal. Then, when the Qiang troops pursued them, little Qi used himself as bait to lure them away. Without little Qi, he would have died. "Little Qi, as long as you're safe and sound, when you return to my side I will shower you with love. From now on, I won't ever let you feel even a trace of sadness." The capital. The gate to the Palace of Merciful Peace opened. The titled principal wives of high-ranking officials all came to pay respects. The Empress and noble consort brought the princesses, princess consorts, and principal wives of the imperial clan over. For many years, the Palace of Merciful Peace had not had such a large sight to behold. Sitting in the seat of honor, Empress Dowager Lan was full of vitality, a warm smile on her lips. Once she looked at the faces of those wives of prominent families, she remembered their names. Moreover, she was gentle and amiable to those princesses and princess consorts she had never seen before. The Empress stood by the Empress Dowager's side. The Empress Dowager was in the middle of listening to Duchess Yuè Hóu speak. Duchess Yuè Hóu's heart trembled. She was afraid of Empress Dowager Lan. Her husband also feared her. When the Empress Dowager had been in power, no one dared to speak a word of flattery before her. Afterward, their son was betrothed to Princess Chongping. The Duke estate was wary that Princess Chongping would resemble the Empress Dowager more than they liked the princess. In the end, the princess accepted a political marriage abroad, and the prior engagement became invalid. Until now, Duke Yuè Hóu worried that the Empress Dowager would take her anger out on them. Yet unexpectedly, the Empress Dowager sealed her doors not long after. She no longer paid attention to the affairs outside. The young daughter-in-laws were not too clear about those matters long ago. They all felt that the Empress Dowager really was a rare benevolent elder, unaware that the generation of their mother-in-laws deeply respected this woman who had used to be at the apex of authority. Empress Dowager Lan scanned her surroundings. She said to the Empress gently, you should hurry and sit. You are the mother of the world. How can you still be standing? The Empress respectfully said, this subject is a daughter-in-law and ought to be this way. For the past few years, this subject has not done one's filial duty for your honored self, and feels heavily ashamed. Your honored self should let this subject attend to you. Empress Dowager Lan reached out for her hand. Gently said, good daughter-in-law. This palace has thrown a bunch of trouble at you and paid no heed to them. Luckily, you have managed things well, properly attending to the emperor for many years. Empress Dowager Lan paused. Then continued to smile as she said, you've taught second prince well. You are a great mother. Chener has attained much merit at the border. It is also considered a contribution of you as his mother. End chapter. Fpyq Jiang. Chapter 42. Envoy. The Empress leaned over and in a soft voice, she said, this subject dares not claim credit. Imperial Mother was the one who taught Chener. Only then was he able to calm His Majesty's worries, able to defend the territory of the great state of Kong. The Empress Dowager smiled as if she no longer wanted to continue this topic of conversation. However, cold sweat suddenly sprang from the Empress' body. Why did Empress Dowager Lan come out of seclusion out of the blue? What did she know? Empress Dowager Lan had shut her doors for 7 years. In these 7 years, no matter what occurred, she did not make any movements. So why was it now that? Ever since the Empress had entered the imperial palace, she had never won a dispute between her and her mother-in-law. Nevertheless, it seemed the Empress Dowager had grown tired of it in the end and took the initiative to retreat. Only then did the Empress have the chance to breathe. The last time Princess Consort Chun had begged her, the Empress had promptly ran about all over, asking people to persuade the Emperor in forgiving Li Chen. However, the Empress' action made others believe the rumors. The more people the Empress requested help from, the more people found it suspicious. Finally, people found Li Chen licentious and incompetent, only able to rely on his mother and wife to do things for him. After Empress Dowager Lan left the Palace of Merciful Peace, huge waves rocked the whole capital. All at once, the Zhou and Yuan families grew silent as winter. Those officials that had accused the Empress Dowager of intervening in politics in the past inevitably felt anxious. There were also some who weren't sensible and thought that since the Empress Dowager was already old, she wouldn't be able to do much. Every day, the Emperor paid respects to the Empress Dowager in the morning and the evening. The relationship between mother and son seemed joyous and harmonious. Others could not discern anything wrong. The second day after Empress Dowager Lan came out of seclusion, all the rumors regarding Prince Chun vanished. She had not even uttered one word. Xinyuan country. Almost daily, Cheng Sija had to listen to the conversation between Tan Jiao and Feng Qiang. A few days later, he sighed with regret as he said, after those two removed me from power, they've already fallen out with each other in a few days. After staying in that residence for 3 to 4 days, Qi Yunruo and Cheng Sija only thought of how to escape, but once Cheng Sija had listened to that conversation with much interest and excitement, he remained to listen to another. Qi Yunruo could not help but suspect Cheng Sija had thought up an escape plan since long ago and was already completely prepared. He did not place Tang Qiao and Feng Qiang in his eyes at the slightest. However, Cheng Sija was flabbergasted. Why do you think this? My subordinates have been either captured or put under control. Tan Qiao and Feng Qiang can have my life at any moment. Enraged, Qi Yunruo shoveled food into his mouth. It's almost been 2 years since I've been away from this country, said Cheng Sija in a leisurely manner. In these 2 years, Tan Qiao controlled the court. Those subjects could continue on even without me. Xinyuan country has a small army. Moreover, for the most part the army is stationed at the border. I cannot summon them here. Qi Yunruo furrowed his brows. Don't tell me you really will just stay here and wait for your death. Cheng Sija's face no longer had its frivolous appearance from before. He slowly said, what I'm waiting for isn't death. Qi Yunruo was somewhat at a loss. Until he remembered what kind of person Cheng Sija was. Then he more or less understood. You're waiting for Tan Chiao to realize he can't handle all of the nation's affairs? That they need you. Cheng Sija drank a mouthful of wine. A trace of a sneer appeared on his lips. These past 2 years, if it weren't for the fact that I dealt with diplomacy, the nation wouldn't be as stable as it is now. Tan Chiao, that idiot, thinks it was all because of him. Now, the situation outside the nation is severe. Tan Chiao wanting the country to practice isolationism is just a pipe dream. Qi Yunruo fell into his thoughts. Although Xinyuan country did not directly go to war with the great state of Kong, at the beginning they had supplied the Qiang with army provisions. After that, they ambushed Sidi. At present, Great Kang's envoys were already on their way. If it were Cheng Sija, he would have 100 excuses to calm the situation. His skill in diplomacy far eclipsed that of Tan Chiao's. Once the great state of Kong, this strong and powerful country, came to question them, what can Tan Chiao, this scholar who only knew how to handle court affairs, do? Cheng Sija looked forward to that day. Qi Yunruo lowered his head. If Great Kang's envoys came, would he have the opportunity to go out and see them? If he could contact the prince like this, the envoys of the great state of Kong would arrive within a few days. Because of a great drought, a few years ago, Xinyuan country had once attacked the frontier. Once they had been forced to retreat, Cheng Sija surrendered immediately without giving up anything. Moreover, he complained that if he didn't attack the border, his people would starve. For that reason, the envoy from Great Kong couldn't even open his mouth to ask for reparations. In the end, the final result was that in the future, when Cheng Sija wanted to enter the capital, he needed to meet the emperor as a subject. However, Cheng Sija had never once thought to enter the capital. This clause had absolutely no meaning. The two countries had signed a treaty of mutual nonviolence. This time, Great Kang's envoys would use the oath of peace in their quest for reparations. This time, the ones who came on the diplomatic mission were Grand Secretary Yuan Rong and Hanlin Academy's new arrival, Ji Huan. An imperial lecturer was a civil official position that read for the emperor. The rank was not high, but the person would be a member of the emperor's inner ministerial circle. Their status was revered. Originally, Ji Huan was only a small byangsu from Hanlin Academy, arranging books in the library pavilion every day. He would not have had the opportunity to be close to the emperor in this position. Although he achieved the third highest score in the imperial exams, among the countless members of the scholarly and erudite, he was inconspicuous. Grand Secretary Wen was his maternal grandfather by name only, as he was Ji Ro's blood-related maternal grandfather. He had numerous students, a peach tree with many peaches. Many people revered him, but Ji Huan really wished to be far away from him. Who knew that the emperor would come to Hanlin Academy and see the books Ji Huan had arranged? Cursive that was in small script and flower-like, refined and elegant. The emperor liked paintings and talented and gifted writing the most. He summoned Ji Huan. He noticed that this new Tanhua's speech was natural and unrestrained, tone-light and clever. He appointed him as an imperial lecturer on the spot. It could be said that Ji Huan reached the heavens in one step. Everyone envied him. However, a month later, the emperor wanted him to go on a diplomatic mission with Yuan Rong. If he returned with some good news, he would be promoted again. Ever since Ji Huan heard that his little brother Little Qi had left the capital with Prince Chun, he had been secretly worried. Once the rumors in the capital had appeared, he grew even more concerned. However, his official rank was too low and his words held no authority. He had no way of speaking for the Prince and Little Qi. Now that he was off on a diplomatic mission, he hoped he could see Little Qi. He did not know that the person he was worried about was in the exact location as him, in the Xinyuan country's royal palace. Naturally, Qi Yunruo did not know who had come. At night, he followed Cheng Sija to eavesdrop on the conversation. The welcoming reception was today. At this time, the banquet had roughly concluded. The moment Cheng Sija lifted the floorboard, he heard Feng Qiang angrily say, "It's all Cheng Sija's fault. He went and got Xinyuan country enemies from everywhere. First, he befriended that useless Bo2K, throwing aside Yuè Hóu who is the most favored presently. Then he dispatched people to attack Prince Chun's support. The troubles he provoked are now thrust into our hands. Right now is not the time to complain," said Tan Qiao. Enraged, Feng Qiang hurled a porcelain cup to the ground. A crisp sound as it shattered. She screamed, "Then tell me, what should we do? Right now, the army of the great state of Kong has surrounded the Qiang people's land. If we can't bring something out, their army of 100,000 will attack us. What should we do?" Not a word left Tan Qiao's lips. Cheng Sija and Qi Yunruo listened in silence. Then, Tan Qiao said, "We can only offer a yearly tribute or reparations." All of a sudden, Cheng Sija squeezed Qi Yunruo's shoulder. He endured the pain, not daring to make a sound. Qi Yunruo glanced behind him, and under the dim lighting, he could see Cheng Sija's ashen and furious face. He wanted to continue eavesdropping but Cheng Sija dragged him away. On the way, Cheng Sija sneered. "Although my Xinyuan country isn't large, we have a huge population. Everyone lives peacefully. Never have they experienced this kind of humiliation. If Tan Qiao actually chooses this route, he should just wait for the civilians and court officials to curse him to death." Qi Yunruo hesitated before saying, "But he holds the power right now. If he truly places this governmental decree, for them to give Great Kong a yearly tribute," Qi Yunruo was not discontent at all. What worried him was that, if after Tan Qiao truly did this, he and Cheng Sija would remain imprisoned. Cheng Sija stopped in his tracks and coldly said, "Let's wait and see." In the consulate, Yuan Rong muttered, "Turns out the most troublesome Cheng Sija is nursing his wounds. We don't have to be concerned with this Prime Minister Tan Qiao." After a night of crossing swords, Ji Huan could tell that this Prime Minister was a sheep in wolf's clothing. His words were vague and evasive. From the start, he avoided the important and dwelled on the trivial. Tomorrow was the formal negotiation. It shouldn't be too difficult. What sparked his curiosity was how Cheng Sija received his injuries. Could it be that he personally participated in ambushing Si? His injuries seemed serious. If not, why would he not show his face during such an important event? Cheng Sija was very hard to deal with. In the past, he heard the older diplomats to Xinyuan country would tear up whenever they talked about Cheng Sija. Ji Huan had come here thinking he would fail, but never had he expected that the situation would be so smooth. The next day, Yuan Rong, in a tyrannical manner, gave the impression that he wanted land, reparations, slaves, annual tributes, and the transformation of Xinyuan country into a vassal state. In the palace hall wasn't only Tan Qiao. Even if Tan Qiao agreed to only giving slaves and reparations, he would not be able to escape angering the crowd of court officials. Shang Guanyao sneered. "Sir Yuan, although our Xinyuan country supplied army provisions to the Qiang, it wasn't to help them invade Yushu Pass. Rather, we were originally going to sell our country's foodstuff to them. These provisions would exchange for cows, sheep, and furs for our civilians. This cannot be used as proof of our crimes." Ji Huan said, "Our two countries had signed a treaty of mutual non-violence in the past. Perhaps it's true that your distinguished country supplied provisions to the Qiang year after year. However, from what this subordinate knows, the civilians of Xinyuan country are rich. Their food is abundant. They don't need to rely on the cows, sheep, and furs sent every year to survive. If it's for the Allies' safety, your distinguished country could forego the trade with the Qiang. War is a matter concerning the ones in power," Shang Guanyao indifferently said. "The civilians would not understand." Soft laughter tumbled from Ji Huan's mouth. "This subordinate has heard before that there are many ethnicities among the civilians of your distinguished country. There aren't just the Han and the Qi. There are many other small ethnic groups. If there's a governmental decree, it's possible that civilians would not comply. All of a sudden, these words blocked Shang Guanyao. Could it be that he had to admit that his king no longer held authority? That the civilians would not listen to their orders? Yuan Rong continued to say, let's not talk about this first. We will directly discuss how your country's people ambushed Sita and his men. At that time, His Highness Prince Chun was waiting for Sita's 100,000 men to support him in battle, but because of your distinguished country action, many of His Highness' subordinates died or suffered injuries. Even His Highness himself met danger. His Highness is a prince of the first rank of Great Kong. His identity is noble and distinguished. Minister Tan, Sir Shang Guan, tell us how should we deal with this? In an instant, Tan Chiao was left speechless. This was what worried him the most. He really didn't know how to make sense of this. Why did Cheng Sija, this always cautious person, ambushed the Great Kang's people? Didn't he prefer fanning the flames at the back the most? End chapter. Fpyq Jiang. Chapter 43. Situations like so. Shang Guanyao said, Sir Yuan, Sir Ji, when it's all said and done, we are subjects. We have no authority to decide such important matters for the king. He turned to Tan Chiao. Sir Prime Minister, the way this humble official sees it, it's better for Sir to ask for His Highness' opinion first. In all likelihood, His Highness' condition should have started to recover. Otherwise, how could he be intimate with Her Highness, so that she could prepare to give birth to a child for this country? Once his words had left his lips, the hall fell in a state of uproar. The high-ranking ministers of Xinyuan country all shared a look. Then, they could not help but whisper among themselves. Especially those officials who were of Han descent. They couldn't understand why their king once again became close with Her Highness. Hadn't Feng Jiang almost been deposed? If His Highness actually started to recover, why hadn't he made an appearance? The expressions of the Qi subjects also weren't good. In an instant, cold sweat appeared all over Tan Chiao's body. How would Shang Guanyao know about Feng Jiang's situation? Did he place some spies in the palace? Did he know that Feng Jiang and himself had committed adultery? The gazes of Yuan Rong and Ji Huan met. They were able to discern some abnormalities from the expressions of the Xinyuan country subjects. Tan Chiao hastily said, May the two envoys temporarily return to the consulate. This humble official will report to His Highness, then give a response. Yuan Rong slowly nodded. Apathetic, he said, since the king of your distinguished country has started to recover, yet is unwilling to meet with us, is it because he looks down on our position? Or is it that he is discontent with Great Kong? Hopefully Sir Prime Minister will quickly give us a response on our prior discussion. Wearing a smile, Tan Chiao sent them off. Under the gazes of the many different subjects, he calmly said, the condition of His Highness has in fact started to recover. I will go visit and ask for instructions. He and Feng Jiang had planned to reveal the news of her pregnancy during an appropriate time, but there was no way he could refute Shang Guanyao's words right now. A Han official said in a peculiar way, Minister Tan, just what is going on? During the period in which His Highness was previously injured, you actually summoned Mistress Feng to take care of him? What are you planning? He thought that if the king truly started to become intimate with Feng Jiang, perhaps she had taken care of him when he was ill and moved him greatly. But could Feng Jiang truly change her personality? How could that be possible? Tan Chiao's face darkened. Not a word escaped his lips, but a Qi subject turned to the previous Han subject and said, Are you unsatisfied with His Highness' arrangements? When can you decide on His Highness' family matters? The Han subject from before took his time saying, if an ordinary woman of Han descent became the queen, it would be His Highness' family matters. However, if it were a woman of your Qi ethnic group, then this is the affair of our Xinyuan country. That Qi subject was so angry that it seemed he wanted to brawl. Shang Guanyao glanced serenely at Tan Chiao and then smiled. In any case, His Highness will make an appearance soon. If anyone has any questions, you can directly ask His Highness. Another Han subject sighed with emotion. Speaking of which, this humble official has not seen His Highness for a long time. In the future, His Highness should stay in the country for long periods. Then we can be at ease. Today they had experienced the coercion of the great state of Kong, and it was not a good feeling. Long ago, when they had taken the initiative to dispatch an army, it was precisely because His Highness spoke of their pitiful circumstances that the envoys of Great Kong were struck speechless. When they compared the two situations, Tan Qiao truly was incompetent. You're right. This time we have to implore His Highness together not to leave the country. Yes. We must request this of him together. Tan Qiao clenched his teeth. His expression grew more and more unsightly. These past few years when Cheng Sija had not been around, he was the one who handled the court. He was the one who read, edited, and approved memorials and proposals. The current Xinyuan country thrived and lived in peace. Yet, the moment Cheng Sija returned, they all forgot his contributions. Once Tan Qiao returned to the palace, Feng Qiang had already heard the news. With a dark expression, she said, "Don't tell me we actually have to release Cheng Sija." Cold enough to freeze, Tan Qiao said, "Then what do you propose?" Feng Qiang's face was filled with ruthlessness. She sneered. "Why don't we just kill their good king? We can say his injuries couldn't be healed. Then what can we say about your pregnancy? Those high-ranking officials all have eyes. You're already 4 months pregnant. Cheng Sija has only returned for 1 month. Even if we can fool them, what if a girl is born?" Feng Qiang lifted her head high. "Even if it is a girl, she can still ascend the throne. In our Han people's eyes, daughters cannot ascend the throne," said Tan Qiao serenely. Enraged, Feng Qiang yelled, "Your Han people! Your Han people! It's always your Han people who are saying things. This was originally the land of us Qi people. You stole our land. For us Qi people, women can rule too." Tan Qiao looked at her without a word. He turned around to head for the place where Cheng Sija was imprisoned. Anxious, Feng Qiang rose to her feet. "Come back! Scoundrel! Come back right here! You coward! You're an idiot! Why did I find a man like you? What use are you?" Tan Qiao finally couldn't endure any longer. He stopped in his tracks. Then he turned his head to glance at her. The chill in his gaze forced her to step back. She fell back into her chair. The moment Tan Qiao appeared in front of Cheng Sija was in the midst of a chess match with Qi Yunruo. Qi Yunruo had learned chess from his mother during his youth. He had forgotten how to play in the past few years and was learning again. Cheng Sija glanced at Tan Qiao, not one bit surprised. However, he continued to play. Although Qi Yunruo held a white piece, deep inside, he wasn't as calm as Cheng Sija. Who were the envoys from Great Kong? Did the prince know them? Would he have a chance to see them? Tan Qiao said, "Your Highness, I dare not accept the honor." Tan Qiao's face held a trace of embarrassment. Then he calmly stood at the side and reported the negotiations between Great Kang's envoys today. The gears in Qi Yunruo's brain spun in overdrive as he thought of the name Yuan Rong, but he had never heard the prince say this name before. He did not know this person. Cheng Sija did not respond to him. Instead, he advised Qi Yunruo, "It's your turn." Tan Qiao sucked in a deep breath. "Xinyuan country is your Highness country. If we truly become a vassal state of Great Kong in the future, wouldn't your Highness feel pained?" Baffled, Cheng Sija said, "What does this have to do with me? You're the one who wasn't competent enough to protect Xinyuan country. The one who'll become the king of the vassal state to Great Kong is your and Feng Qiang's child, not a descendant of my Cheng family." Sitting to the side, Qi Yunruo couldn't help but laugh. Cheng Sija seemed truly suspicious. He said to Tan Qiao, "You're actually asking me, a person who is awaiting their execution, for help?" He clicked his tongue. First, Tan Jiao flushed red. Then, his face turned dark. Finally, it were as if he had not heard Cheng Sija speak prior. The two people Great Kong had sent this time are members of the Emperor's inner ministerial circle. Yuan Rong is the Grand Secretary. Ji Huan is the Imperial Lecturer of Hanlin Academy. At that moment, Qi Yunruo's hands shook. His chess piece went to the wrong spot. Ji Huan? Brother Ji? It's him. He came to Xinyuan country. In an instant, his heart pounded madly. Cheng Sija sneaked a peek at him. Tan Jiao said, Your Highness, Xinyuan country was built by the blood, sweat, and tears of 3 generations of the Cheng family. Your honored self truly doesn't care. Cheng Sija yawned. Carelessly he said, My Cheng family has lasted for 3 generations. Isn't your Tan family the same? The grandfather of the Tan family was the benefactor of my paternal grandfather, saving his life. Tan Jiao's whole body froze. He clenched his teeth. He had thought of it countless times. Back then, his paternal grandfather had such ability. Why did he deliberately save Crown Prince Rui Wen? Couldn't he have become the king? He also recalled how his father and his grandfather earnestly taught him to be devoted to the Cheng family. And Cheng Sija had trusted him completely, entrusting the affairs of the nation to him. In the end, what he recalled had been coincidentally catching sight of the thin and pallid Feng Jiang. At first, Tan Jiao pitied and sympathized with her. Then, he adored her. Finally, she seduced him. And he thought he could replace Cheng Sija. At present, he already lost his favorable impression of the overly ambitious Feng Jiang. Now, he strongly believed she had led him astray. She made him do such a disgraceful thing. Feng Jiang. It was all her fault. Tan Jiao left in a dazed state. Qi Yunruo no longer felt like continuing their game of chess. Stretching his back, Cheng Sija said, You know the envoys. No, not many outsiders knew that Ji Huan had used to stay at Prince Chun's estate. In the estate, he held the identity of a secret guest. When he was to return to Minister Ji's estate, he had to leave the city walls and make a few rounds, before entering the city walls again and making for said estate. Cheng Sija faintly narrowed his eyes and grunted his acknowledgement. Just when are you leaving? Asked Qi Yunruo. Didn't you see that Tan Jiao could still endure? Once he can no longer hold on, this king will naturally leave. He fanned himself, a lofty expression on his face. Qi Yunruo forced a smile. The gears in his head spun in overdrive once more. How could he let Brother Ji know that he was imprisoned here? Then a thought suddenly struck him, if Cheng Sija were released, he would be even harder to handle than Tan Jiao. At that time, what if Brother Ji had a tough time dealing with him? Not to mention, Cheng Sija had countless spies in Yushu Pass, the capital and the Qiang territory. The Qiang territory, Fpyq's royal tent. Fpyq and his birth mother Ai sat together. Then he stood and started pacing. Every now and then, he would ask, Have the people we sent to Xinyuan country returned yet? First he contacted the spies Cheng Sija had left in the Qiang lands. He was also afraid that once the spies left, they would not return. Therefore, he subsequently sent his personal guards to follow and help those spies. At this time, those people should have long since arrived at Xinyuan country. However, no news came. Presently, royal father favors Fpyq even more. Cheng Sija is flexible and takes advantage of the situation. Did he forget how I had put in a good word for him in front of royal father, giving them so much cows and sheep? And even promised to give them land. I calmly said, perhaps Cheng Sija cannot save his own hide right now. For a long time, Fpyq did not speak. I sighed. Back then, if you had accepted the Han princess, in the eyes of the Han, you would be considered Prince Chun's brother-in-law. He would inevitably support you in ascending the throne. Yet you pushed her to Fpyq's side. Nowadays, Fpyq not only received your royal father's favor, the imperial clan of Great Kong also supports him from the back. How could we win against him? If I had known this would happen, of course I would have taken the Han princess, he said with resentment. Prince Chun had already begun breaching the territory of the Qiang, gradually encircling the royal capital. So much so that Fpyq worried he would not only lose the throne to his brother but he would also become a prisoner. I was similarly afraid. She already lost all her favor, and the Western Owl tribe behind her was no longer as glorious as it had been in the past. In the future, it was extremely possible that she would be brought into Yuè Hóu's tent. And then those humble female slaves and concubines could trample on her. 3 days later, Fpyq still had not received a response from Xinyuan country. However, he had received a piece of correspondence from the Great Kang's Prince Chun. Fpyq hurriedly ripped the letter open. And the moment he read it, fear struck his heart. What did Prince Chun mean when he said to bring out a boy surnamed Qi? Who was this? He continued to read. And it explained the details of the day Prince Chun and that boy had separated. His heart jumped. He had once heard from his subordinates that they had forced Prince Chun to leap into the Yun River. He hadn't even had the time to feel happy, when he heard the news of Prince Chun coming to their territory. In that case, the person who had actually jumped into the river was probably that youth. What if he were dead? At this moment, Yuè Hóu was already acting as an envoy and had gone to Li Chen to negotiate peace. And currently in Xinyuan country, Tan Qiao looked at the towering Qiang people urgently waiting to see the king to save their country. The splitting headache he has grew even worse. End chapter.